The Denver Broncos were dominated by the Buffalo Bills in their second preseason game. Hello everyone and welcome to Denver Broncos Syndicate, part of the Sports Syndicate family of channels where we're dedicated to bringing you content about our favorite sports teams. I am your host, Gage Madrid. Before we jump in, we just need to knock out the housekeeping stuff. According to YouTube, just over 2/3 of the people who watch these videos are not subscribed. So if you routinely watch these videos but are not yet subscribed to the channel, it would be awesome if you could do so. We are trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the beginning of the regular season, so each subscription would help us out a ton. The Denver Broncos suffered their first preseason loss of 2022, falling to the Buffalo Bills by a wide margin of 42-15. Despite the final score not really mattering in the preseason, it was the way that the Broncos played that causes concern. For the first quarter, the Bills elected to play a majority of their starters, including Josh Allen and Stefon Diggs. Although it was widely speculated that Von Miller was going to see some action against his former team, he ended up being one of just 3 Bills starters who did not play in this game. The Broncos, on the other hand, took the same approach as last week and elected not to play most of their starters in this game, and that will likely be the case next week against the Minnesota Vikings as well. Josh Johnson once again got the starting nod for this game. He had a pretty solid start to the game, leading the Broncos on a 12-play, 64-yard drive that ended with a field goal from Brandon McManus. The Broncos' second offensive possession wasn't as smooth. Johnson missed on a couple of throws, and the drive stalled after just 5 plays for a net of -2 yards. Johnson finished the afternoon 8 of 16 passing for just 70 yards. Once Mike Boone exited the game, the Broncos offense struggled to run the football as the Bills' defensive line sharpened up after the first drive. They also struggled in the passing game after the first drive until Brett Rypien, who we'll talk about later, entered the game. By that point though, the Bills had already run away with the game. The Broncos' second and third team defense also had a tough outing today. On the opening drive for the Broncos defense, Josh Allen and the Bills offense sliced through them for a 6-play, 70-yard scoring drive that took less than 3.5 minutes off the clock. The Bills were able to cap it off with a 28-yard touchdown pass from Josh Allen to Gabriel Davis, where Josh Allen had way too much time in the pocket and was able to find Davis open coming across the field. Things didn't get much better for Denver after former Bronco Case Keenum and the Bills' backups entered the game. Missed tackles and lack of penetration in the run game were the special of the day. The Broncos also struggled in coverage. They played off coverage for most of the game, allowing the Bills to pick them apart underneath. They were picked on deep a couple of times though, including one play where Michael Ojemudia was cooked by Stefon Diggs on a corner route. The Broncos' defensive line struggled to get off blocks and got virtually 0 penetration against the Bills' offensive line. There were also some struggles at off-ball linebacker. New signee Joe Schobert made his Broncos debut, and he seemed to struggle out there. The linebacker unit as a whole struggled with missed tackles and getting off blocks throughout the entire afternoon. In just the first half, the Broncos gave up 333 offensive yards to the Bills. I don't care if it's preseason or not, that is simply unacceptable. The defensive struggles continued into the second half. The first 6 offensive possessions for the Bills ended in touchdowns. The Broncos didn't force a Buffalo punt until midway through the fourth quarter. By the end of the game, the Broncos surrendered 511 offensive yards to the Bills, allowing 9.3 yards per play. It wasn't the X's and O's that failed the Broncos today, it was an overall lack of effort. The team is seriously going to have to clean this up as we head into next week. One of the few positives that came from today was the performance of third-string quarterback Brett Rypien, who finally gave this offense a spark as we entered the second half. The Broncos finally hit pay dirt in the fourth quarter when Brett Rypien found a wide open Eric Saubert in the back of the end zone. Rypien finished the afternoon 22 of 26 through the air for 191 yards and the touchdown. It was a nice bounce back performance after an overall up and down outing against the Cowboys. Although it seems that the Broncos have confidence in Josh Johnson as their backup quarterback, Brett Rypien is certainly making his case. It will be interesting to see how the Broncos approach the quarterback situation as we enter next week's game against the Vikings. On the injury front, the Broncos were dealt a blow before the game even began as punter Sam Martin exited pregame warmups with an ankle injury. Coach Hackett later said that Martin was going to be okay. First-year punter Corliss Waitman handled the duties in Martin's absence. As far as other injuries go, cornerback Michael Ojemudia exited early in the game. It was later revealed that he dislocated his elbow, much like Jonas Griffith. Hopefully, he has a similar timeline to return as Griffith and doesn't miss too much regular season time. A tough break for OJ, who suffers his second preseason injury in the last 2 seasons. Later in the game, offensive tackle Casey Tucker was carted back into the locker room with a foot injury. He later told reporters that he dislocated the big toe on his right foot. They were able to pop it back into place, and Tucker does not believe that surgery will be required. So definitely not the way that we wanted today to go. On the bright side though, it does give us quite a bit of teaching tape as we progress. This also gives the team a good idea of areas where depth may need to be added as roster cuts happen. Speaking of, the Broncos will once again have to trim their roster down from 85 to 80 players by Tuesday, August 23rd at 2 p.m. The Broncos will then be back in action 1 week from today for their preseason finale against the Minnesota Vikings. In just 23 days, we will finally have real football as the Broncos will head up to Seattle for their highly anticipated matchup with the Seahawks. I'm curious, Broncos country, what are your thoughts on the team's performance today against the Bills? What are the greatest areas that you think the team needs to improve? Drop those comments down below. I would love to hear from you. Be sure to leave a like on this video, as well as subscribe and ring the notification bell so you don't miss when we upload. And while you're at it, be sure to follow me on Twitter at Gage Madrid NFL for live in-game tweets as well as other Broncos coverage. And for now, this has been another episode of Denver Broncos Syndicate. I am your host, Gage Madrid, saying peace out and let's ride.